Okay, so this is one that I just remembered. I think I was reading somewhere about this person, Joe Glaser. Joe Glaser was Louis Armstrong's manager. Okay, so keep that in mind. That's important. All right, so put that over here. Boom. When Maynard would go play New York, it seemed like everybody knew him. You know, everybody would say hi, people you wouldn't even expect, a lot of people I never saw before, and some people who you would recognize, like, really, you know this person, boss? So we played the Bottom Line one time, and in the audience is David Bowie and Robin Williams. You're just like sitting there, like anybody else. And backstage is Marvin Stamm, great trumpet player, Lou Soloff, great trumpet player, and Burt Young. Burt Young was Rocky's Paulie in the Rocky movie. Thinking, what the, who are these people? What are they doing back here? Well, Maynard knew Burt Young because Maynard did the soundtrack for this movie, Mighty Joe something, not Mighty Joe Young. Burt Young was a trumpet player. Anyway, Maynard did the soundtrack, so I guess at one point they met. And one time we checked into the Edison Hotel in New York. That's where we used to stay, right off Times Square. And as we were checking in, this guy's checking out. We all got off the bus. We're walking through the lobby. And we see this guy who's checking out as we're approaching the front desk. And Maynard looks at him and he says, Izzy. And Izzy, I don't know who Izzy is. He looks at me, hey, Fox, called him Fox. They gave each other a hug. They were talking, a friend, somebody he knows. Isaac Stern. Izzy. I didn't know these guys had nicknames, right? So they're talking. I'm thinking, yeah, holy smokes. Like every place we go, as soon as we stepped outside the Edison Hotel to walk around, Tom Bosley came up and said hello. So Tom Bosley played the father in Happy Days, Richie Cunningham's dad. So, all of a sudden you have all these, people just coming up and saying hi to Maynard out of left field. So it was really interesting. It was fun. So I approached him about it one time. I think we were on the bus, and this all ties into Joe Glaser, all right? But we're on the bus. I said, boss, you know everybody. What is it with this? How do you know everybody? How do you know all these people in New York? And he said, when we used to play New York, and he had the Birdland Dream Band at Birdland, they would play late. Maybe they start at 10, maybe they start at 11. And it goes all the way, maybe till like 4 o'clock. And he said when people would finish what they were doing back then, when Broadway plays got out, the movies got out, the Yankees, the Mets, they would play. And then when that was finished, when concerts were finished over at Lincoln Center, the opera let out. Everybody let out about 11 o'clock, 12 o'clock, and they all wanted to go and hang. So where they would hang is they would go to the jazz clubs, because back then that was the cool place to hang. So Maynard said in Birdland, it isn't as if Maynard was walking around New York introducing himself to everybody. These people would be at his gig at Birdland when he fronted the Birdland Dream Band. And he says in the audience would be Stan Kenton, Ella, musicians who may have been off, Phil Rizzuto from the Yankees, Yogi Berra, all the actors that were acting. He knew like all these actors and actresses that some of them did movies. Names we know now. They were there. Sports people, politicians, the mayor. So he knew everybody. He knew everybody. And one of the people that would stop out and check out the band, and there were other clubs, not just Birdland, but this was Maynard's gig. And that Birdland story, there's a whole chapter on that. But Ed Sullivan used to be in the audience. And when I was growing up, people my age, we remember back when there were 3 stations on television. And then they had one that you needed an antenna for. But there were 3 stations you could get on TV. And on Sunday night, Ed Sullivan had the show. It was a variety show. And Ed Sullivan was the show that you watched because he introduced all the new stuff. He introduced the Beatles. He had the Doors on. He had the Rolling Stones. He had opera singers. He had comedians. If you made it big on the Ed Sullivan Show on Sunday night, Monday morning, almost the whole country would know who you were. So to get on the Ed Sullivan Show was a big, big deal. Okay, so there you have it. So Maynard is friends with Ed Sullivan. So Maynard's thinking, man, it would be great to get the band on. Now, Maynard was on the Ed Sullivan Show, but when he was with Stan Kenton. So it was Stan Kenton that got on. And this was way before Maynard. That happened way before Maynard was in Birdland. Okay, so Maynard's talking with Ed Sullivan. They get to be friends. And Maynard gets his, at least this is how Maynard told us on the bus. Maynard told Ed Sullivan that, hey, I'd love to bring the band, and Ed thought it was great because the band was great. And they set a date, I think it was like in 3 weeks, we'll have you on, get maybe 2 tunes ready. So Maynard's rehearsing the band, picking the right tunes, editing everything so it's tight, and all that. So he says he's working on it. The band is sounding great. He couldn't wait because he's going to be on TV. He's going to be worldwide, boom, in one night. That's what the show could do for you. So Maynard has the date, and he says he's rehearsing, and he goes to the place a couple hours earlier, goes to the Ed Sullivan Theater, which was the Letterman, well, that is a theater. Then it became the Letterman Theater, and that's where Stephen Colbert does a show from, that theater. That's the one. So anyway, Maynard goes uptown from Birdland to go and, have the band playing. When he shows up, it's just a couple hours before the show starts, somebody tells him, no, you can't play, you're not going to play. And Maynard's like, whoa, wait a minute, I made the deal with Ed. Guys, no, it's over. Not going to happen. And Maynard was like, what are you talking about? He goes, nah. He goes, look, I need to talk to Ed. He goes, you're not going to talk to Ed. It's not going to happen. And it's not Ed. It's Joe Glaser. Joe Glaser blocked you. And Maynard's like, block me? He blocked me for a while. Why did he block me? And everybody knew who Joe Glaser was. He was connected. He was friends with Al Capone, Chicago mob. Anyway, he was someone who would Wayne. Anyway, he was somebody who would book a lot of acts, and he had a lot of jazz acts, and he represented Louis Armstrong, okay? And usually when an agent represents somebody, they take maybe 15, 20%, it's all negotiated, of what they make. So if somebody makes $1,000, the agent would make, for 15%, make $150. That's how agents work. And everybody would take a piece of the artist. The whole idea is, try and protect your whole thing, try and protect how much money you make. So anyway, Joe Glaser took 50% of Louis Armstrong. And the deal was, according to what Maynard said, Joe Glaser said, I own 50% of Louis Armstrong, and I told Louis Armstrong I am going to make him a millionaire. And he did. But he took 50%. So Joe made his million, and Louis made his million. And one of the many ways he had, or one of the many ways he was able to get Louis to be that popular, was he controlled where Louis went by not having any what he saw as competition, right? So Joe Glaser set it up so Louis Armstrong would be the only trumpet player on the Ed Sullivan Show, because he wanted Louis to be the most popular. He wanted Louis to make money because he would make money. And he blocked any other trumpet player from being on the Ed Sullivan Show. And that's how Maynard got pushed off. So according to Maynard, and this part I don't really remember that well because I think it changed every time Maynard told the story. Maynard, he walked into the office and he made a big stink and he kicked some chairs over. He said I was really mad. And he was just, I could change my career. Anyway, apparently he really ticked off Joe Glaser to the point where Maynard was kind of blackballed. And it was around that time, shortly after, I think, it was getting to be, so it's a little while since I heard the story, and it really wouldn't matter anyway because Maynard was so inconsistent with the facts. That was part of the charm of the story. He would look at Maynard and say, oh, what are you talking about now? It was different than yesterday. But shortly around that time, that's when Maynard left and went to England. I don't know if he was blocked. Joe Glaser made it hard for him in New York. I know that Maynard caught the back end of Birdland in that era. He caught the last 2 years of it before they bagged it, before it wasn't what everybody thought, or it wasn't what it was anymore. The English invasion came in, the British rock bands were coming in, the scene was changing. Dexter Gordon moved to Europe. Phil Woods moved to Europe. Everybody was, taking off and like trying to find another place to make it happen. So Maynard went to England, and that's when Maynard was in England. All right, so there you have it. Joe Glaser blocked him, and I'm not sure if that was the reason Maynard actually moved to England, or maybe that made it easier to have him move to England. But he did talk about after that event, things were different for him, but things were changing anyway in the scene. But anyway, thought it was a good story. I just forget Joe Glaser. Look him up. He represented Louis, and he was tied into. I think he went to medical school, but he watched an autopsy or something like that, and he threw up in the operating room, and he figured this isn't for me. And then he owned a couple clubs, and like I said, he was in Chicago, and he worked with Al Capone, so he was part of that whole entertainment mob. They were the entertainment arm of the mob, along with Morris Levy and those guys. And Maynard had his stories with Morris Levy too. But anyway, there you have it. Joe Glaser blocked Maynard. I'm pretty sure I have that right from what Maynard said. Yeah. Anyway, so there you have it. Look him up, Joe Glaser. What are you going to do? Right now, I don't know if they have big guys like that anymore. Now it's all corporate. Now all the gangsters look official. All right, there you have it.